Good morning, good morning, good morning, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Roundtable Talk Show. I am your host, Sharifa Hardy, and today's show is going to be extra special. I love all of my shows, all of my guests, but today's show I'm truly going to enjoy. I love when I have returning guests. They're my favorites. They give me updates, they tell me their progress. But we do have a new guest as well, and we're going to find out all about him. But before I go ahead and introduce today's guest, I'm going to ask you to do what I always ask you to do, and that is to share this information with someone. Find 5 friends, 10 friends, find someone who wants to start their own entrepreneurial journey, their business, or maybe they're still at their day job, but they want to change. This information can help them, and it can only help them if you share it. Because, like I always say, friends don't let friends miss out on the Roundtable Talk Show. So while you're sharing the show with your friends, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first guest, who you just saw earlier this week, Dr. Shakinah. Dr. Shakinah Judah offers soul purpose sessions and sound healing sessions for those who are ready to deepen their inner work. She has worked in the clinical community for over 25 years. Dr. Shakinah received her bachelor's degree in sociology and human development and master's degree in social service and counseling from California State University, East Bay. Good morning, Dr. Shakinah. How are you?
Good morning. I'm excellent, and thank you for having me back.
Of course, I love it when you're here. You take some of these most stressful, outrageous situations, and you are able to show the beauty in them. And that's what I love. But for our audience who hasn't met you, please tell them a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Yes, so I live in Castro Valley in California. I have a private practice in Hayward, and at the private practice, I offer soul purpose sessions and sound healing sessions specifically. And then I also work with other individuals who come in who just want to work on their psychotherapy issues. So I'm also a scholar, I'm a researcher, I'm a published author, and I also facilitate groups in an inpatient psychiatric facility here locally. I've been doing that for 10 years. I've worked in both inpatient and outpatient. And I'm really ready to help our community to develop a deeper sense of who they are through these soul purpose sessions and also the soul purpose workshops that I hold on Fridays at 11 a.m.
So
And
you help people to find their soul's purpose, correct?
absolutely. Through the work that we do a lot of different techniques. We start to clear some of the energy that's sort of no longer serving individuals. And through that work, people find who they truly are and they find their mission or purpose in life.
Is there any like set time when maybe a person is going through a divorce, layoff, or maybe they get to a certain age? Do you see any patterns in which people start to come to you?
I definitely do. It's usually in midlife, and it's people who've done very well for themselves and who have accomplished the things that they wanted to in life, and now they're looking for something deeper. It's also people who come to me of all ages who are experiencing something that we call spiritual emergence or spiritual emergency. So the spiritual emergency happens when a person isn't able to handle a sort of a spiritual awakening experience. Spiritual awakening experiences can happen during high stress times, which a lot of us have been going through, in the past year. And they can be triggered by innate things like taking a walk in the forest or meditating. I'm sure many people have heard of Kundalini awakening, where people are, suddenly experiencing all of this energy. And this is, known in the Eastern philosophy that we have energy within our spines, and that sometimes gets activated with spiritual practices.
Okay, so what you're saying is, over the past year, you've seen an increase in more people having these spiritual awakenings.
Definitely, absolutely. And this really is the time that we're in right now. Many people know it as an ascension process where spiritually we're waking up. And
Mhm.
so more and more people are doing that.
And what happens when they wake up?
Well, it depends. If they have people around them that know what's happening, they get support with it. They're allowed to process what's coming up very slowly and in their own time. They're kept in a sacred or protected space, which could be a therapist's office. It could be a group of other individuals who are experiencing this. It could be with a transpersonal psychologist or a doctor that knows about these things. And it can also happen spontaneously where people don't know what's happening to them and they don't have the support around them, a community to support them, and they end up hospitalized. So that actually happened to me 30 years ago when I had this experience. Nobody around me knew what was happening. I didn't know what was happening. And I ended up in the hospital and medicated. And it took me a long time to get out of that modality and really dig deeper to find out what had occurred for me, what happened.
When you say get out of that modality, what specifically are you referring to?
Excellent question. So being medicated and being told that I was mentally ill and that I would have to take medication for a very long time. And in fact, I wasn't mentally ill. At the time, I was having a difficult time struggling with what was happening to me. And the Western clinical community didn't understand, in the area that I was in. Transpersonal psychology has been aware of this spiritual emergence for a very long time. Stanislav Grof did a lot of research on spiritual emergence and spiritual emergencies. And more people are having these experiences.
I want to talk more about that, Dr. Shakinah, but I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest, a good friend of mine. I love her when she's on the show. She's been on all of my shows. You'll also see her today at 11 on Love, Harmony, and Happiness, Dr. Jody DeLuca. Dr. Jody is a licensed clinical psychologist with over 20 years of experience. She is cited internationally in major journals and media venues for her expertise and research in emotion, behavior, and relationships. In addition to her private practice, Dr. DeLuca is a member of the American Psychological Association Media Referral Services. She is a frontline licensed clinical psychologist during the COVID era, and she always helps me personally get through this COVID experience. Good morning, Dr. Jody. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great, thank you. And I so look forward to being here. And it's so great to see everybody. And Pierre, I'm so happy to meet you. It's just, I was thinking as you were talking, my gosh, you and I go back, with this show almost a year now, and we have seen so many changes in the world, but also our country with the culmination yesterday. It was a year ago yesterday, the 20th of January, that they had the first documented and reported case of COVID in the country. Probably was here before then, but it was just a cataclysmic event yesterday on many surfaces. If you look at the whole chronology of events, and I thought, my gosh, you and I have followed it. In fact, you said you associated me with COVID now. And I was like, okay, well, we got to work on that one. But as always, it's a privilege to be here. And thank you.
I don't
so
associate
much.
you with the disease.
Thank
I just
gosh.
associate you with the process. And that's a good thing, because I'm like, I'm going through this and I want to hear what Dr. Jody has said.
Yeah.
Because you are so personable. You're always so cheery. You're always so up. But the information that you provide is from a medical professional. And so that's why I enjoy getting both sides from you.
Yeah, I'm also an emergency medical responder, but I am a clinical psychologist. So I have had the privilege and the good fortune of working within the medical and behavioral health. And the consolidation is so strong because of, like what Dr. Shakira was saying, there's so much that have been going on with people since the onset of this pandemic and the emergence of so many different things. And I've been a part of that wave and that change with people, and your shows have helped with that. So it's great to be here, and I'm excited for today.
I'm excited as well. And you have helped the shows just simply by being here. But again, we've been here for this. It's been a year, because I believe you were on my April 2020 show for the first time. And then since then, but I always ask you the same question. What are you seeing now? What are you, what are you seeing as far as the feeling that's out there, what people are going through?
Okay, so it goes in waves, and a lot of, I'm just going to stick with the United States right now with our nation, is it's very contingent and dependent upon what happens with the nation, especially coming down from DC, which also includes what's happening with the pandemic. And there's been a lot of different information. There's been a lot of highs and lows since the beginning, going back to March, then the shutdown, and then the, you know, the injustice and the political protests and riots, and then, you know, politics colliding with health and science, and then unfortunately the insurgents, which I think things were on a trajectory of people were feeling a little bit more comfortable. And then what happened was, and hopeful, let me say that, hope is so important. But then we had the insurgents, and then we find out, guess what? There's no surplus of vaccines. And I saw a dip in just personally and professionally with my friends, my patients, colleagues, and just what I was watching on social media. So we're all riding the wave. And I think we were all thinking 2021, the start, it's going to be great. And then there was that dip. And a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, I can't do another year like this. But my message is always the same. We have to have hope. We have to focus in on where we want to be. And, you know, a lot like Jamie was saying, manifesting, seeing where we want to be. And that includes not only on a personal level, but on a national level. Where do we want our country to be? Because we are all Americans and part of this. And we've all had the journey in common.
Yes, see why I love Dr. Jody. She is amazing. Now, Dr. Jody, I'm going to come back to you, but I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest. And he's an expert as well. It's his first time on the show, Mr. Pierre Muller. Pierre spent several years in corporate America, business, marketing, financial planning. It taught him what made some entrepreneurs very wealthy and caused others to fail. He developed a deep respect for entrepreneurs and passionate to help them avoid the mistakes he has seen. He was looking for the best online business opportunity to follow his entrepreneurial passion and found digital marketing. It enabled him to start a digital marketing agency. Good morning, Pierre. How are you?
Hi, Sharifa. I'm doing well, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity. It's wonderful to join you on the show. Yeah, thank you for that introduction.
I think I said corporate America. You're not in America, Pierre. Where are you?
Yeah, I am from South Africa, southern tip of Africa. So very far from the US, but I think in many respects, sort of actually going through the same type of cycles currently, whether it's economically or with the pandemic. So yeah, very excited to join this conversation with you.
Now, we spoke with Dr. Shakinah. Shakinah talked to us about spiritual emergence and emergencies. We spoke with Dr. Jody. Dr. Jody talked to us about the feeling of America and what's going on with the people. Now, your specialty is actually gauging kind of what makes some people successful, why some people fail. What have you seen over at least the last year, or what traits do you see make some people more successful?
Yeah. Thanks for that. Sure. I think it's naturally been a very disruptive period. I think as business owners, you often plan for sort of typical business risks and things like that. But something like a pandemic hasn't really been on the card. So I think for a lot of people, it's really been a massive sort of hit in the stomach. And it's been a difficult period, I guess, for business owners, because you're really sort of battling between worrying about your personal health, you're perhaps worrying about your family. You've got all these personal concerns, but at the same time, for many businesses and many entrepreneurs, it's naturally been a very tough time during lockdown with the customer base really vanishing overnight. So I mean, so many businesses closing down, so many people losing their jobs and really having to rethink their future and their careers. So I think it's really a tough time. I think it's a time for many people to pause and reflect. I think for those who are fortunate to continue with their careers as in the past, continue with the Zoom conversations like these and carry on as if nothing changed. I think they're naturally the fortunate ones. But for so many businesses and so many entrepreneurs, really a time to rethink, is there a way? I mean, suddenly the world is online. I think the world has really been gradually moving towards being online more and more. But I think this pandemic has really just forced the world to really just leapfrog ahead, I guess, in time, where everyone knows what Zoom is now. And I mean, if you ask, the average person 2 years ago what Zoom is, naturally, very few would have, been comfortable with it. So I think the world has just really leapfrogged ahead, and the question is, how's business owners going to be able to adapt? Does that mean becoming a part of this online environment, selling their products more online, where they historically sold it more from the brick and mortar store? Does it mean adding an online solution to their current mix to be able to get a slice of that pie? But I guess really it boils down to things like resilience and being able to really sit down now and cast the vision into the future, not to fall into a trap of despair, and really find that hope, find that encouragement. The answers is out there. I think that's the great news. We live in a wonderful era where there's wonderful tools and systems and information out there. If we can only just find ourselves, choose to pick ourselves up, have hope, engage with that and build those solutions, I think there's wonderful opportunities. But it's important to keep hope. I think it's been said by the other speakers as well.
Yes, keep hope. Thank you, Pierre. I'm going to come back to you, but I want to go ahead and introduce our next guest. And again, you've seen her here before. You saw her last Thursday on the Roundtable Talk Show, and she will be back. Leslie Hooper. Leslie is the founder and owner of Peer Hopes. We're talking about hopes today. Peer Hopes. She is a life coach and certified in Texas as a peer specialist and supervisor. And she had a journey to get here to this place. She had ups and downs and merry-go-rounds, also been in hospitals and psych clinics since she can remember. Good morning, Leslie. How are you?
Good morning. As always, it's good to see you.
It's good to see
What a
you.
day.
I know. I love your background. I always love your background.
Thank you. I'm changing my artwork up. It's a new year. I need some new artwork. So, ah,
How you feeling today? What's going on in your world?
I am feeling really good. Getting ready for May 1st when my book will launch on Amazon. It's a girl named Yo-Yo, the ups and downs and merry-go-rounds of mental health. And get on there now, and because it's on ready for pre-sale, so get out there, pick it up. It's really exciting time right now. Peer Hopes is also moving to a nonprofit, so that way we can help more people. I realized there was a lot of people that want to be able to talk to others that have been there where they are, and they can't afford services. So I looked every which way I could and decided that we needed to be a nonprofit, so that way we could provide services, get the grants, get the donations to allow for my people to still be paid and provide these services for free. And I am feeling full of hope right now. So,
Well, I am feeling full of hope for you. Now, you heard Dr. Shakinah 30 years ago. She had this experience, wound up in the mental hospital. What were your thoughts when you heard Dr. Shakinah?
you know, my thoughts were there's a lot of us that have had the same types of experiences that go through that emergence, and then there are some that's not the experience they have. That, it is okay, I think, for people to know that sometimes you do need to be on meds to get stabilized until you can move forward the rest of the way. For me personally, I am diagnosed bipolar. I do not think that I had an emergence. I know that I actually need my meds to stay stable, because every time I got off of them, I would end up having a suicide attempt. I would end back up into the hospital until I learned that, hey, I really needed some more help besides just coping skills. I needed something that helped keep that mood stable, you know. Um, Now, when I say that, I always tell everybody you don't want your mood and you don't want your life to just be a flat line. Like on EKG, you want it going up and down. But with the meds, it keeps it from being way too high and way too low. It helps it be in that middle ground to where I'm not getting into the suicide attempts, or I'm not going in mania where I am spending everything that I have and buying all sorts of stuff and talking way faster than I normally do, and you know, just doing risky behavior. Instead, it's keeping it down lower. So I think there's help and there's different ways for different people. And some people are going through the emergence and they can work through the process and and move forward that way. And then there's some of us who actually do have a mental illness. I hate that word illness,
Me
but
too.
but it I tell people, I don't go around and say I am bipolar. I tell them um, I have been diagnosed with bipolar, because we don't go around and say I am cancer. We say we've been diagnosed with cancer. And to me, that means it's treatable and it's curable and there is recovery in it.
Very interesting point. Leslie, I'm going to come back to you. I want to go ahead and introduce our very next guest. You've seen her here before as well. And each time she's here, we love her. She's shared her journey, her story. Miss Jamie R. Wright. Jamie is an active speaker, coach, author, and advocate for survivors of life trauma and domestic violence. She has shared her story on 60 Minutes, BBC News, NCB, CBS, and most recently, The Doctors TV with Dr. Ian Smith. She is a senior analyst with nearly 2 decades in finance and auditing with the federal government, and has received awards and commendations for time in Afghanistan, supporting Operation Enduring Freedom. Jamie is also the author of 2 upcoming books, Finding Purpose Through Pain and The Power of Overcoming Shame and Learning to Love Yourself Again. Good morning, Jamie. How are you?
Good morning, Sharika. I am phenomenal. I am grateful. I am just honored to be here as always.
I love when you're here. What do you think of the conversation so far?
Love it. Listen, I love it. The whole like healing. I'm just like, yes, the manifestation. This is a part of my manifestation, and that's why I'm so grateful. It's just so fruitful and so so timely for me.
Mhm.
Right. So yeah, that's why I'm so honored. I'm like, this is good stuff.
What's been going on with you, Jamie? What have you been up to aside from the doctors? Congratulations.
Thank
Yes.
you. So becoming very clear in what this part of my journey is supposed to look like. And
Mhm.
what's opening up for me is like, yeah, I'm supposed to be at the grassroots level. Just sharing myself in such a way that I open up the conversation and address the elephant in the room, and that's the spike in domestic violence during the face of COVID. And so, yeah, just leaning into that, uh, making sure that that I'm sharing my story in a way that both victims of domestic violence and the people that find themselves victimizing know that there is that magical word hope, and there's help and there's resources available. So just like doing this grassroots level work, and in the face of still going through my therapy with my psychotherapist and my group sessions, and in like you said, Sharifa, coexisting with my own stuff in the duality of like, oh, okay, well, I can't wait till I'm healed. I got to be healed and help to spark
The
healing in
deal.
others. So yeah.
So for those of our audience, our viewers who are just hearing your story for the first time, tell us a little bit about yourself, Jamie.
Wow. So I live in Houston, Texas. I'm originally from the rural parts of Northeast Oklahoma. And yeah, I moved here to Houston thinking that I was going to live this happily ever after life with this amazing, tall, dark, handsome man. And what I discovered is that the universe, my creator, had something very much different in store for me when I found myself at a homeless shelter here in the Houston area in the wake of the pandemic, as a result of this beautiful, amazing man hitting me in the face and knocking my teeth loose. So from there, I spent about 3 months in the shelter, very humbling. Got the honor of doing some soul work, some healing, and not necessarily focusing on the bad of what happened, but leaning into what was this supposed to teach me. And yeah, so like I'm just like I'm pumped, I'm honored. I know that I got the healing that I deserved, not for me, but to help others. Because listen, all of us experience trauma, disappointment, and this is what I know to be certain. Unless and until we heal, kind of like what doctors, the two doctors, amazing doctors on the panel said, it's an individual thing and then collectively, right? And I think we're all in this together, in this meaning, this thing called life. And for me, I feel like we only have this one life to live. Even if we believe in reincarnation, whatever, I'm not going to come back as Jamie. So why not live this one life like full of abundance and love and healing and collective community? Like, let's choose love, right?
Yes,
That's the
yes.
bottom line. Let's choose love.
Yes. I mean, just your face is glowing when you say choose love. Like I felt it in every ember of my body. Thank you, Jamie. Pierre, we have these lovely ladies, different viewpoints, different thoughts, but they all want to get their message out there. They want to improve their business and be successful. When you hear them, what are your thoughts, Pierre?
Yeah. Yeah, I really loving the words that sort of echoing, I think, in this conversation, sort of healing and hope and moving forward, I think, from here. And maybe, yeah, bringing it back to my space and the digital marketing space, I think there's lots of hope. I think again, we live in a wonderful era where, I mean, there's so many people who have a message. They it's a story, make your message kind of thing. There's so many people who've been through situations. They have skills, they have a passion, they want to help people, but they don't really know how to just bring that into the world. They might be stuck in a job, but they actually have entrepreneurial passion. They want to share something with the world, but they really don't know how. Or it's a entrepreneur who's operated in a certain way in the past and really just stuck, wanting really to get their message out in the world. And I think there's again, we live in a wonderful age. I think there's wonderful opportunities. I mean, my business, I really started my business when I was at a point where I had no capital. I'm an introvert by nature. I'm not very salesy by nature. I don't like to be salesy, but I've got this entrepreneur passion and I want to help entrepreneurs. And I think the online world creates that opportunity. Especially at this moment, we hear so many entrepreneurs say, I want to grow. I need to get my cash flow back, but I don't have the cash flow. I don't have a marketing budget. How can I really put myself out there and grow my business without the cash flow? And I think the good news is that the answer is out there. There's various methods and systems that one can put in place that doesn't cost much, or there's ways in which you can grow and your clients can really finance your growth. I don't want to go into too much detail. I think the point is, as I mentioned perhaps earlier, it's a time to reflect, to stop, just to ask the questions, get the information. We are really passionate to help entrepreneurs, whether it's entrepreneurs, authors, anyone with a message, anyone with a passion who want to help the world, and really to help them get that message, their product, their service, their passion out there, and how to scale it and really make an impact in the world, and ultimately live their lives. I think how wonderful is it if we can live out our passion and we can get the message out there and we can see the change in other people's lives because of what we do. That's so fulfilling, and that's really a passion of mine, to help others to find that. So yeah, I can go on for quite a long time. I'll leave it.
Pierre, you said something so significant at the onset of the show. You said not to fall into the trap of despair, have hope. And what's so great about this is you're talking about it from an entrepreneur perspective, because a lot of people can't, we're focusing in on the COVID and the health variables, but you actually are an entrepreneur and you help entrepreneurs with the emotional side of things too. And I think that's so important, not to fall into the trap of despair. Have hope.
Yeah.
As small business owners, all of us, that emotional component of losing it, the potentiality of losing our businesses, which many of us sacrifice and risk so much, that's a critical part of it. And what I also found interesting is, you mentioned the political, economic, and the pandemic variables that are going on in your country, which has known that for years and years and years. So I do have one question, if I may ask it.
Yeah, sure.
Do you see our country, the United States, especially within the past year or two, experiencing similar political unrest as South Africa has been dealing with for so
Yeah.
long?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, I must say, I think just over the last year, it felt like the world has become smaller in the sense that I think, especially for developing countries, you obviously, you look at the developed countries of the world and you feel far away. But I think that over the last year or two, it's really just felt like the world has become much smaller. Where obviously we share the pandemic, and we talk
Mm.
about the same lockdowns and struggles and worries, and then even from a political point of view. So yeah, we obviously follow the US very closely in terms of our investment markets and our financial markets. So we're definitely not just sitting far in the corner of Africa sort of on our own. We're obviously very tuned into what is happening in the US. And yes, absolutely. So I mean, our political situation has improved somewhat, but it is a long-term difficult situation. And yes, so I think there's lots of similarities.
Absolutely. Dr. Shakinah, I wanted your thoughts, because we want to make sure when we're talking to people, what were your thoughts on what Leslie had to say about what Leslie had to say?
Absolutely, I agree with her. Some people really do need to be on medications, and sometimes they're having a combination of a spiritual emergence and mental illness. And disease or mental illness, and I know we don't like to use those words, but disease is really dis-ease. It's a lack of balance. And sometimes there's a chemical imbalance in the brain, and that needs to be, looked at and treated. Absolutely. So I do agree with what she was saying.
So
And I
when
give her a lot of credit for sharing that.
Yes, I love Leslie's honesty. She's always
Yes.
authentic when she's here with us. So Dr. Shakinah, how do people determine when they show up with you which one it is and to work with you?
Right. Well, as a psychotherapist, I work with inpatients. So I see a lot of different people coming in. Some people seem to be having a spiritual emergence experience, and there's a whole continuum of people that I've been working with for over 20 years, inpatient and outpatient. So when they come to my office, we talk, I get to know them. I have certain techniques that I use so that we can get to the bottom of it. Typically, people who are in a lot of grief and trauma or are starting to remember past abuse will have symptoms of mental illness, and they don't know how to handle what's coming up. And in fact, it's just memories, or whether it's bodily memories, whether it's unconscious memories, whether it's dreams that they're having at night, they can't put it all together. And then what I do is I help them to put the pieces together, basically, and that can take a long time, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's what Jamie was saying as well.
There's definitely no time limit on wellness. It's not linear. It's ups and downs and merry-go-rounds, and that's something I don't think people understand. They, you know, where I work, we bill insurance, and insurance says, when are they going to be well? When are they going to stop needing services? And that always cracks me up. There is
Yeah.
no time limit. It's up to the person to say, okay, this is where I want to be. And that's the beautiful thing about it is it's one of the things that it's in the person's power to say where they go and how they move forward.
I like that. Jamie, it's in your power to say where you go and how you move forward. How do you get the strength to move forward on this journey?
Well, I lean a lot on my faith and my therapist. When I had the honor of going into trauma centered therapy, I realized that the things that had the trauma that I experienced as a little girl, I had no autonomy. The molestation, and I started to accept that the actions that led me becoming a mother at 14 years old was a byproduct of the trauma and the exposure that I'd gone through as a little girl. And so as I walked through my therapy and realized, oh, no autonomy as a little girl. However, as a grown adult, I'm at the source of choice, and I can either suffer through life or I can live life, and I choose to live life. So, and I always, Sharifa, my hope has always been to leave my grandmother's legacy intact.
Mhm.
And that is my why, has always been my why, from dropping out of school at, in the 7th grade to getting my master's degree and all these accolades in my career field. That's always been my why, because in the face of being 13, and pregnant, and 14, my grandmother was the only person that consistently was my cheerleader.
That is beautiful. So how, in the midst of all this therapy and learning and self-analysis, do you then say, Jamie, let's go be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so with that, it was definitely, Sharifa, the ladies that I was in the shelter with, the
Mhm.
ladies that had lost their voices. And I mean, I have an accounting degree and a master, so I've always been in the business arena. I was like, wow, these ladies have lost their voice. So I've been intentional about how to have not necessarily a monetized impact, but a community impact, where I'm like, listen, people, you look at me today, you would not, see or think that, like, I went and seen a new therapist, a psychiatrist. He was like, well, I don't think you're bipolar 2. And I'm thinking, like, because I don't look it, and so nonetheless, my I was motivated by the ladies I was in the shelter with. And I'm like, no, I'm going to show you all that if I can do it, you all can do it too. So that was my whole transition from, Jamie R Wright to Jamie R Wright LLC. And our mission is to raise awareness around domestic violence and any kind of trauma. Like, you all, listen, I'm just as country as they come. And if I can pull through, you all can too.
I like that. Just as
I love
country as they come. I might have to steal that one. So,
it.
Dr. Jody, you're hearing
Mm.
Dr. Shakinah, you're hearing Leslie. What are your thoughts?
Hey, first of all, I got to say again, what a privilege. And thank you so much, all of you, for supporting mental health, but just human emotion. And emotion, I've said this before in other shows, and I say this almost every day, 3 times a day. Emotion, being human and experiencing emotion, has no chronological age. So at any point in time, in a 24-hour period, we can feel emotions that we felt at 6 years old, at 20 years old, at 10 years old. And actually, the body has the memory that we will actually be viscerally, physiologically experiencing things from the past in the present. What we have to be intentional about is understanding and recognizing what triggers those emotions. And what I've heard from everybody, even today, is moving forward, understanding our strengths in areas that we have to work through. What I always start with, is, especially with new patients, is validating what they're experiencing. Let's talk about it. Why did you seek me out? What was the referral? And then from there, things evolve and we get to understand a history or what the treatment goals are. And I agree with both Leslie and Dr. Shakinah. Some individuals, medication is not indicated. Some individuals, it's mandatory, but it's custom to the individual, because each of us as individuals is unique with a certain set of circumstances, environmentally, genetically, and experientially. So, with all of that said, is every day is a challenge being human. And every day we learn, but every day we're also experiencing a sum of all our life experiences. I don't know if that answers the question, but I think what the message from every one of us today, including yourself, Sharifa, is moving forward. Hope. It doesn't end with this event in life. No matter how hard, there's always some hope, and we can't do it alone. We have to have that outside support. And the pandemic, more than ever, has emphasized that.
Absolutely. That's
Mhm.
exactly what Pierre was saying. Now,
Mhm.
Pierre, when we look at life, we tend to believe that things are easier for some people. And I'm a sexist person. I always say that. So we don't often feel that men, were affected by this whole process. You said earlier that it's basically the same there in South Africa with the lockdown and the pandemic. How was it for you? And how was it for you as a business owner to get through this period?
Yeah, sure. It's a great point, and it actually sort of resonates with the question that's been what I've been thinking about while the other panelists were speaking. And I think maybe from my point of view, I would say I don't want to overgeneralize, but I don't think that men are always as in touch with their emotions as females are, and that's a problem. I think we've obviously been raised, lots of us, to be strong and be the strong one and toughen up and swallow your emotion kind of thing. So I've personally been through a journey. That's maybe a story for for a next episode. But alcoholic father, had some trauma of my own, and for a very long time didn't really face it or know how to face it. And also been through a journey of just trying to really trying to figure out how does this whole emotion and dealing with trauma work. So I think for men, I think the challenge is that we often don't know what we think. Men might be, and again, I don't want to overgeneralize. Apologies to my male listeners, but I think I think we're sometimes prideful. I think we feel we don't want to look weak. We don't want to be vulnerable with our emotions. We must be the strong one, and I don't think that's healthy. I think keeping all of that in such changing times. I mean, you might see the effect now. You might see it a few years down the line. So yeah, I think men definitely going through the same financial, or but I don't think we really always know how to deal with our emotions, and I think that's a problem. And I think the question that I was thinking of while the panelists were speaking is, and maybe you've touched on this in the show before, is what would just be the general advice for people, or maybe for men who doesn't have the opportunity or the privilege to talk to a therapist, to say how do you navigate these times of change where it's sort of constantly changing. For now it's seeming brighter, the vaccines are coming through, but there might be another surprise around the corner, and then it feels like a big sort of hit in the stomach kind of thing. So maybe answering the question, but if there's time, maybe want to throw it out there, because I'm really curious, what would be sort of general advice for people who's not seeking that advice, just to navigate this change, and to sort of survive this time.
I think that was an excellent question. I'll throw it over to Dr. Shakinah.
I think it was an excellent question too. So I recommend just believing in yourself no matter what comes up. Believe in yourself, reach out to those who may be able to help you. Leslie has this free service. There are a lot of nonprofits out there that offer groups, both online and not that many in person now, but there are lots of resources online. So trust in yourself, start to journal. Meditation is highly recommended. Do things that you feel passionate about. Think about the things that you loved as a child, because many of us are coming back in touch with who we were as children before we were indoctrinated. And we were literally indoctrinated to believe what other people were believing. And now is the time when we're going to start to rise up and know our own truth.
Yes,
Wow, great.
absolutely. Leslie, I'd love to hear your response to Pierre's question.
Well, and I was sitting there thinking about that, and I actually see a movement where more men are asking for help than what used to be. One of my largest groups that I do is actually a men's support group. Um, and it was funny. I was like, okay, guys, I'm not a guy, you know, let me get one of my male guys to come lead this group. And they're like, we don't care. You still understand. You
Mm.
still know what we're going through. And it's really amazing to see that. And, one of the things that um, I try to do is build that belief of somebody in themselves, because a lot of times we come in, I know for me, there was many years I didn't believe in me, and I had to have somebody believe in me till I could believe in me. And so I put that trust in them. And so now I tell the guys and women, do you believe that I believe in you? And they will say yes. I said, okay, until you believe in you, I will, and you just lean on that trust that I do.
Hmm.
Um, and the men really appreciate that. They appreciate a space that they can let the guard down, because so many of us, especially here in Houston, I'm in Houston too, Jamie, but so many of us were told, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, you know, get up and just deal with it and shove the emotions down. And now we're learning how that was so toxic to just push it down. And we're learning to let them out as they happen and give ourselves permission to feel our feelings and our emotions and then move forward. Um, and it's all again on what we set our eyes upon. You know, are we looking at the good, or are we looking at all the negative of life? And if we're constantly looking at the negative, that's all we're going to see. And so now it's time to start looking at the positive. And the men are starting to look at for those ways to heal and be different, at least from what I've seen, and with the younger generation especially.
Yes. Dr. Jody, your response?
Yeah, and I actually saw an increase in male patients when we had the recession. When was that? 2009 and 10. And it was very difficult. And most of them were encouraged to get professional help from their significant others. But I think also, to follow up on Pierre's statement, which is very true, there's social and cultural expectations of males, just like females. We have stereotypes that we grow up with. And Jamie even had mentioned it. You know, this was expected of her. There was no autonomy. And we all have that. And it actually becomes part of the way we navigate life. We are conditioned. It's hardwired. Now, what I do, and I get a lot of men, and they're very vulnerable, and I understand that, and I respect it. So my approach is a little bit different. What I try to do is tailor it on the way that they think at work and how they navigate at work, and basically identifying the problem. And I actually have them list pros and cons, but I do this with most of my patients. We start out with very simple exercises, pros and cons of your life and things you want to change, but we limit it. And what I am trying to do with that, it's very cognitive behavioral, is separating feelings from actual fact. Well, you're feeling this, which usually turns into what we call a distorted thought, which affects our behavior and actions, but that's for another time. But basically, it's validating what they're experiencing, but compartmentalizing it and chunking it with the brain and saying, okay, this is what's going on. The number one trigger, the number one problem in my life that's setting me off, first thing I think about in the morning, last thing at night, which is why I'm up all night, is this. Okay. And we come up with an action plan. And I actually have them do a visual flow chart, because I'm all about, hey, it's not only thinking and hearing, but we have to have this visual processing. Some people know it as vision boards, manifesting boards, storyboarding. But so that's how I would suggest it, Pierre. And what I do is, we've got to identify it, but we're going to put it down on paper and then break it down and come up with a plan, a treatment goal that works for you. And I'm very intense as a therapist, and it's like, hey, your life is important, time is valuable. Here's how we're going to do that. And in any point in time that we need to calibrate, we do. Once we get those intellectual things kind of stabilized, there's a sense of increased control. And then we really work on the emotion and what triggers the anxiety and depression or impaired attention and concentration. And when people are anxious and depressed, the first thing that goes is what, ladies and Pierre? What's the first thing that goes?
My waistline, so I don't know.
See, memory. People
Our
think they're
memories.
losing it. I think I have Alzheimer's dementia, you know, in their 30s and 40s. I get a lot of referrals from neuropsychologist colleagues. And by the time we do the empirical, valid, and reliable testing, they say, you need to make an appointment with Dr. Jody. And then we talk about it. And it's usually anxiety and depression that's causing the impaired ability to be motivated, move forward, and attend. So I don't know if that helps, but it's, you know, it
was
seems
excellent
to work.
information. It was excellent information. Now, Jamie, you work with not only victims, but the victimizer. What were What are your thoughts on Pierre's question?
Pierre, I honor you because that was a sense of vulnerability, just asking the question. Me personally, I think platforms like this, organic, authentic conversations where everyone feels safe. Pierre, my hope and my prayer is that you take from this conversation and you plant a seed in the world for men.
Yeah.
I honestly think it's platforms like this. We open up the conversation and let it organically, authentically flow. So I honor you. I appreciate you. Yeah, that's just good stuff. This platform, Sharifa, that's how we
Thank
do
you.
it.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. But it's just interesting because I always say it all the time. It's very rare when the majority of the 5 guests are male. It's usually at least 4 out of 5 are women. And I've been told that's because men don't want to talk. They don't want to discuss it. They don't want to share their feelings. They don't see the point of sitting and having a conversation where women are like, I'll talk about it. What do you want me to talk about? So it's interesting. But I've also had panels where it was 5 guests that were men. So I just like to learn from everyone. Now, we are coming down to the last few minutes of the show. And what I love to do at the end of every show is just simply allow my guests the opportunity to speak directly to the audience, to everyone who is watching the show live, as well as everyone who is watching in the archives, and let them know what you want them to take away from your appearance here today. And we're going to start with you, Leslie.
The main thing that I hear is don't lose hope in the future. You know, the live for love, live for yourself in the sense that you bring healing into yourself and into your life and into those around you. And if you're having a hard time finding that, go to purehopes.com, go to one of these other panelists, and we'll help you. We'll work with you. Um, and if you don't have that hope in you, know that we've got it, and we'll believe in the hope until you do.
That's right. And then the book that's on pre-sale.
Yes, go to Amazon, look up like a girl named Yo-Yo, the ups and downs and merry-go-rounds of mental health, and get your copy today.
That's right. Get your copy today. Now I can't even hear ups and downs anymore. I always just hear ups and downs and merry-go-rounds now. I just hear that in my head every time I think of you, Leslie. Thank you.
You're
Dr.
welcome.
Dr. Shakinah?
My advice and what I want to put out there is to trust in yourself and know that you are loved unconditionally. And if you need help, reach out to those that can help you.
What is your ideal client, Dr. Shakinah?
Someone who's willing to and ready to deepen their work, to get to know themselves on a deeper level, taking the next step.
Do they have to have any special prerequisites?
Absolutely not. Just wanting to get help and being open to doing the work.
That is beautiful. Pierre, what do you have for us?
Yeah, I think thanks everyone again. It was wonderful to be here. I think in terms of business, again, I want to echo there is hope in terms of growing. Again, my space is growth and digital marketing and the business, and I just want to put that out there that for businesses who are struggling or really need to rethink their business, there is hope to grow your business with limited finances in these tough times. You're welcome to reach out to us. We have a free Facebook group called Get More Customers, where we just put out free content, for people to help them. And if you want to work with us one-on-one, you're welcome to reach out. We can jump on a call like this, just have an exploratory conversation at no cost and see, if we can add value to your business. So thank you again for the opportunity.
You are welcome. Do you work in any particular industry?
Not really, no. I think especially during COVID, I think the industries has really opened up. So we really work across different industries and we serve customers in the US and the UK. So we're not bound by location. So really anyone who wants to grow their business, have an entrepreneurial idea, want to get their voice, want to get their message out there, they're welcome to contact us.
Do they have to be at a particular level? Maybe is it just an idea or should they have their website already?
No, not really. I think as I said, we've got for some, we can help them with lots of free content just to get going. Even if it's someone who's just got an idea, they're starting off their business, we can help them. And if it's a business who's been successful, but they're sort of stuck now, in this new world and they really want to take it to the next level, we can also assist them at that level. So really, we can help clients across the board.
And your website again?
It's allegiance.com, ALEADGAIANCE. Quite complicated. Allegiance.com. You're welcome to reach out to us there.
It's in the Facebook post. Just click on the link.
Yes.
It'll take you to the website.
Perfect.
Thank you, Pierre. Jamie, what do you have for us?
Again, thank you for having me, Sharifa. Listen, you all, I'm going to keep it super simple. Let's choose love. If you are on lockdown and you find yourself either the victim of domestic violence or the abuser, please visit my website. There is an enormous amount of resources available for you both. It's my website is Jamie, and that's JAMIE, R Wright.com. Let's choose hope, and let's just choose love and live this thing called life out loud.
Yes, I love it. In your books.
So my books are upcoming. That thing called Life Happens, right? So be on the lookout for them. And again, it's the power of overcoming shame and learning to love yourself again and finding purpose through pain. So be on the lookout, please. And thank you.
Yes, have to check it out. What do you think of today's show, Dr. Jody?
Wonderful. And again, as always, a privilege. And it's so good to see everybody again, and so great to meet you, Pierre. Wonderful. And the message I want to leave everybody with today echoes what everybody is focusing on with the concept of hope and also kindness. But give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to accept that we have been through a very difficult time in the world, in our nation, and in every individual life. Nobody has come out of the past year without some kind of backlash. Day by day, actually, the best thing, whatever's in front of you at that moment, that's what you attend to. Where we get real anxious and wigged out is when we think of all the stuff that could happen or that we need to do. Day by day, moment by moment, and do not give up. There are people out there, friends, family, professionals. You're not alone. There's always a way, whether it be through letter, online, it's there. But keep moving forward, keep going forward, and know what areas that you need to work on. Know what sets you off and work on that. Focus on your strengths. Have a dream, have goals. You've got to have goals. As human beings, we have to have a reason to keep going. If you don't have goals, sit down and write out 3 things, realistic, for the next 3 months and the next 6 months. And God bless everyone. Take good care. Have hope.
Powerful, powerful, powerful words, powerful show. I just appreciate you all for being guests today. I want to thank you for being here on the Roundtable Talk Show. And I also want to thank everyone who tuned in to watch the show live, or if they're watching it in the archives. We definitely appreciate your support. We appreciate you tuning into the show as well as sharing the show. But I always ask, don't just watch the show. Don't just share the show. Please support our guests. They came here this morning to support you, to help you, to share their stories, to share their authentic journeys and their expertise. So please support them. Visit their website. It is in the Facebook post. Click on the link, buy a couple of copies of their books. Have a session, whatever you need to do, a consultation with one of them, but please support them, follow them on social media, reach out to them, send them a message, send them a tweet, send them an inbox. And when you do, please let them know Sharifa Hardy says hi. Now, if you're interested in more ways that I can help your business, or maybe you want to be a guest on the Roundtable Talk Show, please visit my website at AskSharifa.com. Until tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, everyone have a safe and a blessed day. Bye now.